Crime figures reveal that in 1984, 89 armed robberies had been carried out in Manchester. 12 months later, that figure had risen to 139. A new generation of villains had clearly taken over where the QSG had left off. One of them was a young lad from Salford called Paul Massey.
You were born in the 60s. How Salford changed from then until now?
Well, as you know, in the 60s and the 70s and all that, it was more, there was no drugs in the scene, was there? Like, there wasn't cannabis in them days. There was no, what's the name, cocaine about, no heroin about, or out like that in them days. So it was a better, in my eyes, a better community of people was better, you know what I'm saying?
So what did you get up to around Salford when you was growing up?
Well, I started getting in trouble around about 8 years old. And I think I got locked up when I was about 12, ended up in preschool.
What sort of stuff did you get up to?
Mainly burglaries and things like that. And, you know, might do a few snatches here and there, where you're getting wages or other things.
So when were you first sent away?
I was first sent to preschool when I was about 12 years old.
So that's 72?
72, yeah.
And what was that like?
Well, it was pretty rough, to be truthful with you, because they was pretty violent towards you, the staff in the in preschools in them days. And plus you had to fight in them days to look after yourself, because there was no human rights laws in them or anyone protecting you. You have to protect yourself.
So do you think approved school was a mistake?
Yeah, I think what they should have really done is tried a method of rehabilitating me or prevention, which I was never given any of that. I was just heavy-handed by the police, because even when I was a young kid, the police would beat you up, which they did. You'd father beat you up for getting in trouble as well. Then you go to the approved school and you're getting beat up in there off the staff who's running the place. So you come anti-social and anti-government, anti-police and everything, because everyone's attacking you from each angle.
Massey's antisocial behaviour and rebellious views came to the attention of Ken Keating, a well-known anarchist and political activist in Salford. Ken died in 2010, but his son Sean agreed to talk to me.
You know, it's no secret that they said Paul Massey was Mr. Big, and Ken Keating was like using, it's like as his political aim was to bring down the council.
Well, yeah, that's what they said. They said that, you know, Paul was the Mr. Big, the youth of Salford were the foot soldiers, and Ken Keating was this Machiavellian guy who was like politicising the youth of Salford.
Because your dad believed that the chief of police at the time had declared war on the Salford youth, didn't he?
He did declare war on Salford youth. I was there, I was at that meeting, and Inspector Jim Tumner stood up and he pointed right out to everybody that was in that audience, and he went, "I'm telling you now, you will not win. GMP is declaring war on you scum."
That declaration from the police sparked outrage amongst the Salford youth, and they took to the streets.
It's like a pressure cooker. It can only take so much before it explodes, like the riots did. And when I pulled up, I just seen loads of police jumping out of vans, basically chasing people about, provoking people, who's poking people. I seen it with my own eyes. Then people was all foaming each other, turning up. The police was rushing that gang, because people just stood about watching what was going on. Because like, you see 30, 40 police vans pull up, young kids come out and have a look, as you know, nosy. And then the police are chasing them about, running at them. And it's sort of like, loads of anger just come from nowhere. I just seen like people fucking coming from the estates, people running down these entries, coming off as ghettos and everything. And that's I've just never seen in my life so much anger in them young kids' faces. When they was throwing the bricks at the police, it wasn't bad, it was like so much feminine, so much aggression. He wasn't interested in the shops, he wasn't interested in the properties or anything like that, them kids on that day. They just worked a full battle with the police and he took it right to them and the police ran off. I was there. They ran, they abandoned Salford, then the kids attacked Salford precinct because the police abandoned it. That's why the police paid the money to the people because of the damage, because they left the city. And the reason they left the city, not only did they get chased off by, because they've hounded the Salford youth and the Salford teenagers so much. And that day I seen that anger spill onto the streets against the police. It wasn't about like looting, it wasn't about smashing shops or properties. This was police and the Salford anger. And that's what happened that day.
The Dole got burnt down, the rent offices got burnt down. You actually go back and you look at previous acts of civil unrest, riots, whatever you want to call them, yeah? Everything gets destroyed. Nobody gives a fuck. They just burn it all to the ground because it's about destruction, yeah? In 1992, yeah, Carpet World was targeted because Carpet World, right, had brought a policy in where they were charging residents of Odsall and Salford precinct £1 a floor. Because there's a lot of high-rise flats, they thought we can nick an extra £1 note off here, off all the residents by charging them £1 a floor extra, and that was just to get somebody to measure your carpet, right? The Dole office is an obvious target anyway, yeah? The rent office was an obvious target because people believed that the actual records of who owed rent was in there. As it turns out, it wasn't. It was right at the town hall, but, you know. So,
Get them next time.
Yeah, but, you know, it's like, it's... What I'm trying to say is there was nothing of any use to the community targeted or attacked in 1992. Simple as that. There was no doctors' surgeries burnt down. There was no schools. There were no schools burnt down, and they're always usually the first target in a riot, because it's the kids, innit, you know.
I remember vaguely that I know a few police vans were shot up and the police was shot at and there was fires all over the city. And I mean, there was a right destruction of damage done. And apparently, I got accused by someone from Salford Council that I was the Mr. Big behind it all.
Mr. Burrows?
Mr. Burrows, yes. Which I've never been arrested for any of this or even pulled in for it or questioned about any of this. And then since he's made that comment about that in the paper, he's just made my life pretty hell with the police.
Following the riots, the police abandoned large areas of Salford. Massey, with the agreement of Ken Keating, then took it upon himself to protect the neighbourhoods.
No crack, no smack, no hard drugs in Salford. Burglars. If somebody was found to be burgling or known to be burgled, they were spoken to. If somebody was selling hard drugs, they were spoken to.
Usually with a bat, I hear.
Well, you know...
Well, I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
By any
I
means necessary.
I agree with it, but essentially your father and others had assumed the role of the police, really. They were policing Salford.
Well, you know.
When Ken Keating passed away, Salford turned out to pay its respects.
And so was Salford missing?
Salford would definitely miss Ken. He won't get another Ken. He'll never get another man like him. He's a one-off. He wasn't, how can I say, it wasn't to cause disruption, Ken, as people try and make him out. He was there to fight for people's rights, and, you know, if someone, police was harassing you or anything like that, he'd support you. He'd fight the police in legal ways of paperwork and marches and anything else. He's just an amazing man.
I used to find it frustrating because I used to think, why can't my dad be like everybody else's dad? Down the pub, getting pissed, getting stoned, you know, doing what everybody else's dad seemed to do. And as I've got older, I've come to realise that he didn't just hate authority for the fact it was authority. Yeah, he was fighting a bigger battle, and that bigger battle was against oppression, the New World Order, the banks, it was everything. My dad wasn't just an advisor to the criminal fraternity. My dad was a political animal, and that's what his whole life was spent doing, fighting oppression and, you know, any kind of authority that would repress you or I, and that's what he spent his life doing.
In the early 90s, Manchester's emerging music scene meant that it had some of the most popular clubs in the country. Venues such as the Hacienda were meeting the insatiable demand for both dance music and ecstasy, and club owners were hiring the hardest men that they could find to try and keep control of the lucrative market.
Okay, the apartment block across the street bears no resemblance to the world famous nightclub that once stood there. That was the scene of the Hacienda, which was probably one of the most famous nightclubs in Europe at the time because of the rave scene, you know, bands like the Stone Roses, and that all started their careers there. But unfortunately, where there's money to be made, you'll find villains, and where you find villains, you'll find violence. And the Hacienda was the scene, or the cause, of what became known as the Door Wars in Manchester.
And what happened in the Door Wars?
Exactly what it says on the tin, really. You know, various criminal gangs from Cheetham Hill, Salford, Whalley Range, other areas of Manchester, knew there was a lot of money to be made in that club. And so they were all vying to take the door over so they could control the lucrative drugs market.
The Salford lads was known for selling the ecstasy at the time, because they used to sell the E's in there. And the police used to say it was me. It wasn't me at all. It was people doing their own thing. But just because they'd seen near me, they started saying it's me as well. But it wasn't me. I had nothing to do with it. When we was younger and all that, we all like a fight, but we only fought with people who wanted to fight. We didn't go like beat people up for no reason. We wouldn't do anything like that. It's like you go to town or you go about wherever and it's gangs out. You know when you want to fight and you don't. We have a good fight and a tear up. But as the years went on, there was more people from Salford hitting the town, more gangs from Salford hitting the town, more gangs from Moss Side, more gangs from Cheetham Hill hitting the town. So it was coming like a bit of a gang culture, Manchester town centre in the 80s and 90s, where you had to be firmed up to survive in there. But the only thing with the Salford boys, what I will give them, they always stuck together. When there was a problem, you fought one, you had to fight them all. So it was a very powerful firm at the time in the 80s and 90s where they just weren't backing away from anybody. But they wouldn't cause problems unless they come at them.
Pitched battles were fought and won by Massey and his firm, the Salford lads, as they sought to gain control of pub and club security contracts. On one occasion, the Salford firm met in a club with the Cheetham Hill firm. Both were heavily armed and ready for what could have been one of the bloodiest and most brutal encounters in British gang history.
What happened was there was a fight in a club in Manchester with one of the black lads from Cheetham Hill and a Salford lad. Anyway, they had a one-to-one the next day, and the black man from Cheetham Hill had ears bit off him, bits bit off him here and there. Then it was all over. That was to stop the Salford and Cheetham Hill falling out, because I know the older Cheetham Hill boys. But then another incident happened 2 weeks later like that. And then we tried to arrange a fight with the kids from Cheetham Hill, with the kids from Salford, and they weren't having it. So if you want it, it's going to have to be guns. So we was in the club, and I think it was Saturday night in the conspiracy, and then I seen about 60, 70 men walk in with long macs on them, vest and whatever, ballys and everything they had on. They come towards me, pulled loads of things out, and then next minute I just said, you better look around. I just turned around and realised that they were surrounded with men with guns. So I said, put them down or it's going down. So the kid were like that. I went like that to the Salford lads, and then eventually we shook hands and we sorted it out without it going to a proper serious war with Cheetham Hill. Fortunately, it turned out nicely where it could have been a massacre, because there's over 2,000 people in that club, and there must be about 60, 70 guns on the scene of that night in there, and it just took one person to pull the trigger, and it would have been chaos.
The first of many attempts by the authorities to bring Massey down failed miserably. He was acquitted of violent disorder at a nightclub after the main prosecution witness decided to go on holiday rather than face him in a trial.